In this tutorial, we're going to be exploring sample and hold using voltage modular nucleus. As ever, we'll be starting with a blank slate. So with voltage modular nucleus up and running, we'll click that New button in the upper left to clear the rack. We'll begin with the obvious, finding the sample and hold module in the library and adding it to our rack. Once added, we'll find and add an amplifier module as well. We'll go ahead and connect the amplifier's plus output to the main out's 1LM jack. We'll try to connect the sample and hold module's output to the amplifier's input and nudge the amplifier's gain. All we get is a series of clicks. Cranking up the sample and hold's rate knob provides a consistent, if constantly varying, signal. Sample and hold works by sampling an incoming voltage and holding that voltage for a period of time determined by an internal or external clock. An input signal is required for sample and hold to work, and the most common input source is noise. Many sample and hold modules have noise generators built in, and this one is no exception. We'll disconnect the amplifier from the sample and hold module, and we'll add an oscillator, placing it between our sample and hold and our amplifier modules. We'll patch one of the oscillator's waveform outputs into the amplifier's input. We'll increase the amplifier's gain to hear the signal. Now we'll set the sample and hold's rate to around 12 o'clock. We'll run a patch cable from the sample and hold's output to the oscillator's pitch CV input jack. We can instantly hear that all too familiar electronic chattering for which sample and hold circuits are best known. We'll give our sample and hold's rate knob a gradual twist to adjust the internal clock to hear how it affects our oscillator's pitch. Let's explore how another input signal might affect our sound. For that, we'll add another oscillator module, placing it to the left of the sample and hold module in the rack. Once installed, we'll run a patch cable from this new oscillator's leftmost waveform output to the sample and hold's input. Now we'll try the other waveforms in turn. As you can hear, each waveform produces a very different result when used as our sample and hold's input source. It's a shame so many people just stick to that white noise. Let's make a new patch. First, we'll disconnect all of the patch cables in play, save the one running between our amplifier and the main outs panel up top. Let's turn the amplifier's gain down. Now we'll run a cable from the initial oscillator's square wave to the amplifier's input. We're going to use our leftmost oscillator as our clock source for the patch, so we'll set its range to low. We'll run a cable from the second from left output to the amplifier's CV amount input. Assuming that the amplifier's CV amount knob is cranked up, we'll hear a rhythmic sound as the ramp wave controls the amplifier's gain. Because of the wave shape, it sounds as if it's being controlled by an attack-release style envelope generator. Let's set the oscillator frequency to around 2. We'll disconnect the rightmost or audio rate oscillator from the amplifier. We'll go to our library and find the filter module. We'll add it to the rack, placing it between the audio rate oscillator and the amplifier. We'll patch the oscillator's square wave output into the filter's input and the filter's low pass output into the amplifier. Let's reduce the filter's cutoff to 1000 Hz. The sound is now muted as the high frequencies have been filtered out. Let's crank the filter's resonance up to around 70%. Now we'll patch the sample and hold module's output to the filter's Freq Mod 1 jack and crank the Freq Mod 1 knob. That doesn't sound that great since there's no sync between the filter and the amplifier. We'll go to the leftmost oscillator, that's our clock source, and route a second cable from its ramp output to the sample and hold's external trig input, and we'll set the sample and hold's clock source to external. It all syncs up nicely. This is just one of the things you can do with sample and hold. We encourage you to experiment further with this fascinating module.